What up, people? Welcome to another edition of the Guy Talk Pod, where we are honest, open, and transparent. We are bringing you another great guest today, where we are going to talk about some awesome things going on right here at home in our community, things in which that are very dear to our heart as men, but also for our families, and also leadership of our great city of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So none other, we have the great, the awesome Mr. Ted James here with us today.
Appreciate it.
How you doing today,
I'm
Ted?
good. I'm well. I'm happy to be on.
Yes. Thank you for joining us today. We got our awesome co-host, Mr. Marcus, Pastor Marcus Winfrey.
Yes, sir. What's
my
up,
brother,
man? It's
my
good
brother,
to be back.
my
Good
round.
to be back. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Brother from another mother.
That's right.
If y'all been watching the episodes, y'all have seen this tag team in action.
Yeah.
You know, we love what we do. We thank you guys for joining us. We truly believe in empowering men in our community, our sons, our brothers, our uncles, our fathers, all the men that have gone through various life changes and experiences. So we thank you right now. Thank you today for joining. And I'll shut up and dive in. And Ted, thank you again for being here. We know you have a lot going on right now, and sometimes it's hard to carve out time for things like this. So we thank you for taking the time out, man. We have kind of a tradition, if you will. We start each episode off with a verse, a scripture. So today's no different. We want to do the same. We're going from Proverbs 21:15. When justice is done, it brings joy to the righteous, but terror to the evildoers. And this verse kind of really underscores the importance of justice in our society and community as of today. And with so many things that have happened over the last several years with around crime and the lack of justice in some comparison. But before we dive in, let's talk about Ted. You know, who is Ted James?
Yeah, I'll tell you, man. First of all, thank you for this space. And, you know, not a lot of spaces for brothers to do this, right? So outside of the barbershop. Right. And but just being able to elevate and speak freely and humbly and just peel back, you know, the layers of the onion. It's important to have these conversations. And so I salute you all for having just this platform, man. I'm a kid that grew up in East Baton Rouge Parish. My parents stressed early on to me, education, like most of our families. And my parents really pushed me into like really studying government, community, and people. And it's been something that I've always been interested in since very young, and grew up here playing soccer, unlike, you know, one of 3 black kids on the soccer team growing up. So most of my friends were playing basketball and football, but I played soccer growing up and bowling on Saturdays and spent my Saturday evenings at Southern. So Baton Rouge through and through, you know, attorney by trade, went to McKinley and went straight to Southern. I told Suppose yesterday, I went up to Southern as the freshmen were moving in. And for me, I ain't have a choice, right? Like I knew that Southern was going to be a part of my story. And it started when my parents met there, when my dad met my mom and asked her when she was registering for Southern, do you have a boyfriend? And my mama said no. And my dad was like, well, you got one now. And that's how my son.
And that's how they did it back then.
It was no sliding in the DMs,
right.
no meeting you at your locker, no, just straight up, I'm your boyfriend now.
Right.
And so Southern chose me before, you know, I even entered the world. But you know, just been blessed to serve the community in different capacities as a lawyer, as a state rep, and most importantly, my father. Right?
Yeah.
And that's why we do it every day. Right?
Yes.
You know, we were talking before, and it's the family that drives and motivates us. It's the why. And you know, my little 7-year-old is the reason why we get up.
That's
and,
awesome.
You know,
That's
as
awesome.
black men, the world kicks us down.
Yes.
And we wake up every day doing what we got to do.
Yeah.
And it's for the young people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And I can relate to the soccer thing. I was one of 2 brothers that played soccer growing up. So I definitely can relate to that, man. That's you don't find too many brothers that grew up that type of exposure.
That's
you know.
right. Yeah. We
and
develop a whole black team at one point.
Right. Yes. And we know, kind of speaking to your background, you know, we know presently there's the Mayoral candidacy going on now, the race, should I say, and you've chosen to be a candidate to represent the great city of Baton Rouge. What made you make the decision to run for mayor?
Well, honestly, it's been on my mind for almost a decade now, and almost made the decision 8 years ago to run, but I was newly married at the time, didn't have a child, and was interested in having a lot of fun in the legislature. So I sat back and decided to really focus on some other things that we were working on in the legislature. And over the years, just watching North Baton Rouge, our growing issues with, and what we're going to talk about, black men in general, and then had an opportunity to work for the past 2 years with the Biden administration, traveling the country, and I'm going to different places, and I'm watching what is growing in Birmingham and Little Rock and San Antonio, and coming back home wanting to see a lot of that excitement in Baton Rouge with all of what we have, LSU, Southern, BRCC, the educational infrastructure, downtown on the river, and decided that I could either sit back and complain about what's not happening or get off my butt and do something. So for me, this is me not just asking God to order my steps. This is me moving my feet, right? And trying to add value to the community that put so much and did so much for me.
Gotcha. So, question, man, like you went to other places, seeing other things that other people did. What's the ratio of black mayors that you've seen in these places with growing cities like that?
I'll tell you. I'm sorry. Birmingham, black mayor. Montgomery, black mayor. Little Rock, black mayor. Dallas, black mayor. Houston, black mayor. DeSoto, Texas, black mayor, right? And we are seeing just the elevation of a lot of young, dynamic brothers and sisters, right? I'm blessed to know some of these individuals real well, and it's a mixture of the dynamic team you put in place, and it's looking at things differently and divorcing yourself from this the way we've always done it, and aggressively going after certain things, right? And it's a chip that you have on your shoulder, because we know that in many rooms the world is holding us to a higher standard, but that's motivation to a lot of these brothers and sisters who I talk to. And it's, working collaboratively together. They share a lot of information, what they're doing to motivate young people in terms of literacy and job training, right? What aggressive things are we doing around homelessness, right? How are we going to dive into our HBCU landscape, especially those mayors in Alabama, with Alabama State and Alabama A&M? And there's so many things that we could be doing right here at Southern as well. So, but there's a growing network of black mayors across the country, and watching them just be very innovative and being thought leaders on things from infrastructure all the way to education and homelessness.
And that's one thing I can say as I travel to different states. I get a little bit jealous and envious of the states because when you come back home, when you talk about the infrastructure, when you talk about the culture, when you talk about the dynamic of people pulling together in unity to accomplish certain goals for the whole, for the masses, and when you talk to those citizens of some of the same areas you visited, it makes you a little bit jealous, like, wow, why I can't have that? Why we can't have that, And we thank you for putting yourself out there to really make a difference in our community, because we know that's not always easy. So much come with running for office, that some people may know of, and a lot I'm sure we don't know about that comes with that. And I think it's a great segue into the crime here in Baton Rouge. What do you see as some of the most significant changes our city faces concerning crime?
I think we have to, number one, be honest about the fact that we have a crime problem, right? Yeah. We have a gang problem, right? But we got to change the dynamic to focus on the disease and not just the symptoms, right? Yeah. And it's not, we could hire 1,000 more police, right? But if we don't invest in jobs, if we don't really change our community and instill pride of place, we're going to continue to have these things. And like Jay-Z said, people doing crime because they're not doing fine, right? And it's not like people don't just wake up and say, you know what, I'm just going to go and knock on some doors and I'm going to take some things from people, right? It's generational. It's communal, and we have to be honest about it and then have a conversation about law enforcement, right? There are some things that we can be doing a lot better at to aggressively tackle violent crime, to address our gang culture. But unless and until we really tackle those root causes of crime, and we're doing it in small pockets in Baton Rouge, I'm not going to say that everything is bad, but even the things that we're doing at a small scale, we could be magnifying those things with a lot more attention than ET.
Yeah. I know we have like a lot of different programs in our city that help the police and the community mesh well together. You have a lot of the sheriff's office, they do a lot of things where they go out and play basketball with the people in the community, trying to get themselves more involved. A lot of our young people, they mess up young. They get a record, they get a felon. Now, the country wants to hire a felon to be a president, but we won't hire a felon to do a little job at our place.
Right,
You know what I'm saying?
right.
So, what do you see as a problem with that, though? You young, you did crazy stuff, you made bad mistakes, and now you pay for that for the rest of your life. Unless you Donald Trump, who able to get into office and do what he want to do.
Right,
So
right.
how do you encourage the younger black population, because we're the one who suffer when we get felon?
Yeah.
So what do you tell as a mayor candidate to encourage that?
It's funny because I've passed bills in the legislature on felons serving on juries and like trying to educate people on the need to open up opportunities for those justice involved individuals. And we got to educate young people and say, look, when I was young and dumb, I was young and dumb too, right? And in the state of Louisiana, there are like over 300 things that you can't do, jobs you can't apply for, places you can't live, certifications you can't obtain. And if we are not giving individuals an opportunity to earn, because we're not going to inherit. Like they talk about 3 ways you make money: inherit, earn, or you're going to take it, right? So if we are not creating opportunities for folks to earn and to try to rehabilitate, we're inviting a culture of folks that are going to go back and be takers, right? So for me, I am interested to have this conversation. If a felon could be the president of the United States, a felon should be able to get a TWIC card.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
A felon should be able to drive trucks for Coca-Cola. A felon should be able to work for DPW. So for me, I want to lean into these things, especially with my friends on the other side. If you can bring yourself to vote for the highest office in the world, obviously you've changed something, right? So let's use that same type of energy to provide access on a local level. And that's the policy changes that I'm going to push for in terms of contracting with the city, in terms of opportunities for like just private industry that's looking to do business in Baton Rouge. We got to change the dynamic of the conversation across the board.
It's interesting. I had my first mentor session with a young man on last week. So I've never mentored before. That's a new space for me. But one of the things, he's 22, and one of the things he mentioned to me is that he wants to go back to school. He's made some mistakes. He has a record. He wants to go back to school. But he's recently learned that he potentially may not be able to get aid because he's having expungement problems. With Louisiana, going kind of back to those legislative initiatives, is there any initiatives or something within the mayor realm of things that we can address expungement?
Yeah, that's a great question because, and I'm gonna answer, but I'm gonna dial back just a second. When I was in the legislature, there's a ban the box which takes the question, have you been convicted off of job applications? When I was in the legislature, we did it for colleges. So colleges can't ask you as a barrier to entry. Now, housing, depending on the type of crime, they could ask you in terms of housing, but we changed that in the state. But there's a lot of conversation about Pell Grants, right? Folks are limited in the amount of aid they can receive. And if we are not going to allow someone to get the education, right, we basically should just give them an invitation back into the prison, right?
Yeah.
But as a mayor, there's some policy things that, of course, I could work with the state to work on. But expungements, there's a program called Clean Slate. It's an automatic expungement program, and it's one of my regrets that I couldn't get passed in the legislature. We tried 3 years, and it's basically for nonviolent crimes. After a certain period of time, it automatically falls off your record. So you don't have to apply, you don't have to pay, and we got all the way to the finish line, but it didn't pass 3 times. Now, there's a smaller version of it, but myself and our DA, he actually is a huge proponent of it because it's a workforce piece and it's not a soft on crime. So that's something that is actually in the plans that I want to work on once elected, to make sure that in East Baton Rouge Parish, we are getting those misdemeanors and even some nonviolent felonies off the record, so that we can turn some of these folks, remove the stigma, but create productive citizens by removing those issues. So it's something that we're working on right now, having conversations about. Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned stigma. It makes me think about kind of what we were talking about off camera in terms of the incident that happened with my son, or profiling, I guess you can call it stereotyping, I guess all the above, with my son. I know that a lot of the men in our communities of all ages, feel that we can't have a relationship with law enforcement outside of it appearing confrontational. Where do you see that going in the future? How can we build this relationships or dynamic with law enforcement to help them understand that cultures are so much similar, more than and some of the things you see white folks doing, black folks do.
Yeah.
Black folks do, white folks doing. It's not a one size fits all in any way of that. How can we really work on changing that dynamic?
Yeah. And the thing is, we don't get the automatic assumption that there was something must have gone wrong, right? We don't get that benefit of the doubt. And it starts very early with, I believe in having officers in schools and not standing behind a metal detector, grabbing book bags. I'm talking about working in the cafeteria, right? I'm talking about working at the concession stand where we know, and we, like my daughter, she sees a police officer, oh, it's a community helper, right? But that was when she was 6. 16-year-olds, they're fearful. And we have to just be honest about the stigma that's placed on us by law enforcement officers sometimes, right? And there are so many things happening with, now we can carry a weapon, right? Without a permit, without training. That puts black folk in jeopardy, right? That puts us in jeopardy because now it legitimizes that officer saying, oh, I fear for my life. I didn't know. Right? I didn't know, because now everybody can carry, and it's training, but it's not just the training. It's the truth about the fact that we all have a bias, and a bias is not a prejudice is where there's a problem, right? So once your bias becomes a prejudice, that's what a problem is. So being a bias is not the wrong thing, but we have to be intentional about the program. And like 100 Black Men has a really good program. And there are these Know Your Rights classes. And we got to start not in high school. We got to start this in 5th, 6th grade, right? Having these young Black men understand how to respond. But we also have to tell officers that you go to the Black community and you say, hey, when you see something, say something, right? And when issues happen with law enforcement officers, we don't hear them saying stuff. And the ones that we do, they get railroaded, right? And they get criticized. So you can't ask for something that you're not willing to deliver. And people are going to criticize me for saying that, right? I have filed more police reform bills than any 2 people that I know. I'm always going to force the uncomfortable conversation because we see it, same issues like you were mentioning, right? Your son with a different haircut and a different T-shirt,
different out.
You not called because there's no issue there, right? If he had a taper, you probably don't even get that phone call, right? And we're seeing it so much, and there's not a level of transparency and honesty. And I'm gonna force those uncomfortable conversations with Black and white officers alike, because we talk about training, and sometimes it's not the training, it's the transparency and the accountability, right? So unless and until officers feel like there are a repercussion at the end, we are not going to see it. And until we teach because it ain't about complying all the time, because we see what happened with folks that comply. And these necessary, blunt, honest conversations have to start with our young people way earlier than what we're doing now.
And what scares me the most about it, too, is when you think back to when you go as far back as Zimmerman and Trayvon, the whole stand your ground thing, right? So now we have, whereas we can legally, any of us in this room can legally carry our weapon and don't have to conceal. One of the things that shakes me up about it a little bit is someone in the community, a regular citizens, racial profiles, or argument happens, disagreement, say in a store parking lot. And they, again, I fear for my life, stand your ground, whatever. Is that a possibility as well?
Oh, let me tell you, yes, it's because these things are, everybody knows what to say now. I fear for my life, right? We know it. And it goes deeper to what made you fearful, right? Was it my stature? Was it my hair? Was it my melanin? And we watched this thing play out, and you don't have to be a lawyer to defend against some of these things, right? Because we know, and this is going to go a whole step further, but this is why I tell people, when people call me about jury duty, I don't let people escape jury duty, because you may need to be the one person in there that can change the outcome because of your experiences, right? And you can, ask that, why? What made you fearful, right? Was because he looks a lot smaller than you, right? He doesn't look like the aggressive type. He's never been, charged with anything. He wasn't suspended from school. So what made you that fearful? And now when everyone is deputized to carry a weapon without training, it's the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I heard you talk about honest conversations with law enforcement and holding them accountable. A lot of times we do have those honest conversations from the top down, but nothing ever happens. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to say this for everyone, because, we're not just a local show. We are national. We hear people from all over the country that come and look into our show. What's some things that you can say here on a local level that even help people on a national level understand how to carry themselves or handle themselves in a position like that? And also, what's some things that people need to be held accountable for all the way through the full process? Because a lot of times, you get a slap on the wrist, you get suspended. But we're not telling people we're still paying those people while they're suspended. Then they leave from Baton Rouge and go to Port Allen. They leave from Port Allen and go to Plaquemine and White Castle and do the same thing, but there's never any paper trail that follows them enough to stop them from being able to perform like that. If I get fired from a trucking job, then my record's going to stay the same wherever I go, and people are not going to want to hire me because of my record. But that's not the same in other areas of law enforcement and stuff like that, where people still get hired after doing crazy stuff. So as a mayor who will be pretty much running that type of the department, running the police department, which we respect them all the same. How do you hold those people accountable, and what can you help people that's watching us that's not from here that can get some understanding to that?
I'll tell you, and I have not done this the right way in the past, right? I have been quick to talk, right? Quick to tweet before having all of the facts.
Yeah,
it was okay when I was a legislator. As a mayor, I'm not going to be able to do that, right? So there's going to be an elevated level of caution that I have to take as the mayor, right? Not going to speak until I get all of the facts, till I see all of the video. The first thing that we have to do is, if we're going to release it when the officers are right, we got to release it when they're wrong, right? Within the law, right? We can't just, because now when I see an audio or video being released, before I watch it, I already assume that the officer is going to be cleared because of the pace at which we released it. So we can't make excuses for when we release. That's number one. For the general public, we also have to recognize that people file a lot of frivolous complaints against law enforcement officers. I got arrested. I didn't like it, right? So we have to make sure that we see it through. And when I say see it through, file that internal affairs investigation. Follow up with the investigating officer. And for us, we're going to make sure that we are transparent with the process, because sometimes officers will get disciplined And I tried to go when I was in the legislature. I had an issue with the leave with pay. And then after having conversations with officers, I realized how it was unconstitutional for me to go after that, right? So the thing is, we just have to work on the system to make sure that we get an investigation happening quicker, right? But we also have to make sure that we have the benefit of all of the information, right? So, and that helps the officer and it helps us, because if we remove an officer too fast and he's justified, then we got to pay him, right? Back pay sometimes, then we get sued. So there's for me, and that's going to be different than the role that I assumed in the legislature, because I'm going to have to be telling folks in the community, we got to be patient, we got to be calm, but trust that we're going to be fully transparent. And that I believe people respect that, right? And our police union, the fact that when we have these hearings, people got to show up, right? And we got to talk about it, and we got to be honest about the criteria. We got to be honest about just the investigations, and encourage people to see it through.
Okay. That's good. A lot of people, I think they're in fear of that when they say, okay, this is a mayor, got the police chief in his back pocket, all that kind of stuff. And I think we need to understand too, as citizens, that just because you work there doesn't mean that you're not working for the people anymore either. You have to be able to bridge both with one another. I like what you said when you say you have the police officers working the cafeteria, concession stands. We had a police officer here who works in the school system, Willie Brooks, Officer Brooks. And I know my nieces went to school where he policed, and they love him because they know that he's an open guy. He's somebody they can go talk to. My brother loves him because he knows he's a fair man. Now, you don't get a lot of officers like that where they actually go into that. I know in some senses they just send them to the bad communities first as a training ground. But why not send people in those communities who, like, as a start off, you might have to go work in school for a few months, get to know the kids that you're policing. Because if I know you, I'm not afraid of you. Because I know who you are, I know what you got going on. I know if you're a bad kid, a good kid, got a little trouble kid. So, are there some different things that you may try to help implement that will make it a lot easier for people to trust the police that's in their community? Because if I trust you, I look, hey man, I got somebody at my house, I don't know what's going on.
Right.
But if I'm scared of you, I don't want to end up like Sandra Bland either.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And get shot up because, like, hey, what did happen? I think I might have said the wrong name of Sandra Bland, but the young lady who got shot from calling cops.
Yeah. Massey, I think it was Massey.
Yeah, but Sandra Bland, that's another one.
So that's a good example. Yeah.
There's so many hashtags that it's unfortunate that we confuse them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
But we wouldn't confuse them if there weren't so many.
Right.
Correct.
And there are, there's some good things going on with the Truths program. There's some things with Safe Hope for Healthy that I'm not going to scrape everything once I'm elected, right? I'm going to add value to them. And we have to, like the Alton Sterling situation. Had Alton been approached by an officer that normally patrolled, he'd probably still be living, right? It was the 4th of July celebration. A lot of the officers were detailed to downtown Baton Rouge. Blaine Salomon, who was already, we knew he was a bad apple before, right? But he didn't know Alton Sterling. He didn't know his role in the community. And yes, felon, you shouldn't have had a gun. But he would have approached it a little bit differently if he had access to the information by patrolling that community. So we have to make sure that officers are of the community, from football teams, basketball teams, right? Neighborhood association meetings, invite them to different things that are happening in the community, and vice versa. Officers should invite young people. They have a cadet program. Like let's start talking to young people about the law enforcement professions. Let's invite them on ride-alongs. Let's do demonstrations. Let's talk to them about even the stresses of being a law enforcement officer, right? I don't take it lightly that it's a dangerous profession, but we also have to remember who in a scenario is trained, right? One person is supposed to be trained to handle a situation, and young people aren't, right? And we got to always lead with that, because there's a heightened level of responsibility that comes with the heightened level of respect, and you can't have one without the other.
We talk a lot about education, right, in terms of what that looks like, in terms of the officers understanding and knowing the culture, knowing the people, as well as the trust factor that comes from us as citizens, particularly our young black men, because you'll find, other cultures, they don't really have a fear of law enforcement, whereas, of course, black men to a large degree does. And sticking with that in terms of the school dynamic, has there ever been discussion where maybe as an elective course that we can have these courses and these conversations in school, whereas the kids can choose to, I don't know, select, I don't know, relationships with law enforcement. I'm just making something up, whatever that may be, because that may go a long way into communication, because now you get to see into these little kids or older kids' world if there's something going on in the home dynamic. Divorce, maybe mom and dad just recently got divorced. Maybe mom and dad financially not making. I'm hungry right now. I'm hungry all throughout the day. Kids are emotional, right? They don't have that level of emotional intelligence that you and I may have. They may have just, didn't make the basketball team. You know what I'm saying? Went home, just happened to see a law enforcer driving home. It's a bad day for me. It's been a bad day for you. Now things have just got really bad. So maybe an initiative like that, if that hasn't been considered, would that be something that that's a legislator, or East Baton Rouge School Board?
I think it could be a combination. Making it a required course would have to go through the legislature, right? Making it a requirement to participate in extracurricular activities. You want to play football? We're gonna put you, through this 4 or 5 hour course with dealing with law enforcement, right? We have to really, you brought up a lot of issues and the mental health challenges that young black men face, as well as officers, right? Officer wellness has to be a part of this conversation as well. And we have to, I am committed to investing in officer wellness, whatever it looks like for them, right? I've never been a police officer. I don't, subscribe to be an expert on it, but I will be an expert on listening, right? And if we need to invest there, let's do that. The same for our young people, because I think we have their attention from 6th grade till about 10th grade, right? We got their attention, and they could be by 11th grade. I'm not saying you can't be changed, but you got to mold them. And having these levels of conversations, honest, sitting across the table like we doing right now, a guys talk, right? In the 9th grade with sheriff deputies and BRPD officers is something that I would be very interested in working with the new superintendent to be able to do it. Because I know what Lamont Cole did at his schools, right? I know the officers and the relationships that they had with the folks at CSAL and Madison Prep, right? So it's not like these things aren't being done, but they just haven't been done
on a larger level. I've had an opportunity to sit in some schools and do different programs like that. I worked with the Bridge here in Baton Rouge pretty closely. I was on the board a couple of years, so we were able to go into schools and talk to kids, good kids, bad. We all together and talk about the different things alongside with police officers. So like I said, I know that they do it, and it's just we have to understand too that police officers are people. They got families, they have stress, they got a wife, they got husbands, they got kids that's acting up that they got to deal with and still come to work. And I'm frustrated, and I'm angry, and I'm trying to take that out on you. So I think sometimes people have to understand that that officer on the other side is a person just like you. So like Clarence was saying, he might have had a bad day. Hey, you might have one. Well, both might caught up and had a bad one. But understanding that we have to be open enough to with ourselves. Like if I made a mistake, I gotta fess up to that. I gotta own that. I have to live with the consequences of that. If I go out here and I run a red light because I'm mad, I'm fussing on the phone with my wife or whatever, I'm a girl, I gotta get that ticket. Now the officer go out here and make a mistake. This is what we have the problem at. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that you dealing with all of that straight on, but if he make a mistake, he's not held accountable like we are. We get the ticket, we got to pay the fine, and we're going to have it on our license for 3 years. They make the mistake. It's just like, okay, yeah, all right, so we're going to deal with that, and you never hear about it again. Those are the things that I think that people feel need to be a little more open and transparent about. Guy Talk here, we're about open, honest, and transparent conversation. And so, you as being a mayoral candidate, there's some people that might look at it and be like, well, I don't know if Ted going to handle that the way I want to, so they have to be confident enough in you to say that he's going to have the conversations, and not only conversations, but he's going to hold people where they need to be accountable.
Yeah, I think that, for me, like I said, my background it's funny. I was on the radio earlier, and the guy called and he said, well, I heard you hate the police and you've done all this and you anti-union. And that's because I sat at the table and passed bills that I thought would get to the level of transparency that everybody wants, right? I'm still that guy, right? I'm just running for a different position. I have a different level of responsibility to BRPD once I'm the mayor because it's my department. But I'm going to treat them like my daddy would treated me. Don't have me get embarrassed at that school.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Don't have me get embarrassed.
Right.
Don't have them call me because you were down there acting a fool.
Right.
Now, I could come down there and defend you. But if I come down there because you're acting a fool, you don't have to worry about the people at the school.
Right.
You got to worry about me.
Right.
And that's the same. Hey, BR, don't embarrass me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to work to get you the highest paid in the state.
There you
I'm
go.
going to work to get you the mental health that you want, that you need. I'm going to work to get you the technology. Just don't embarrass me.
That's it.
And if we can do that, because if you're a police officer and you're worried about Ted James coming to mayor, you must be worried about how you're going to respond
Right.
in the street.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm going to defend you, but just don't embarrass me.
Yeah.
Right? And I
Yeah.
think that's how we need to approach it all, right? Because we know that there's some recent videos with a guy down in South Baton Rouge a couple months ago that was released, and 2 black officers, one guy, it was like 11 minutes, and they were pleading with the guy, man, just turn around. Just turn around. And I'm sitting there watching like I'm watching a movie. I'm like, bro, just turn around. Man, just turn. And maybe the circumstances, I've had conversations with 20 people about this video, and people can pick it apart. At the end of the day, black man, if it's 9 minutes of an officer asking you to just turn around, brother, I don't care how embarrassed you are. I'd rather you live through an embarrassing experience than be remembered by a deadly one.
You're right.
And for me, I'm like, bro, just turn
Turn
around.
around. Wow.
And the officer, the way that they came on, people can talk about what was wrong. Was it over policing? Those are honest conversations we gotta have too. But like for me, you're not gonna have to ask me 2 or 3 times,
Right.
You know,
Right.
because
Right.
I want to live to hire a lawyer if I need to.
Yeah.
I want to call my daddy like your
Exactly.
son had to
Yeah.
do, right?
Yeah.
And not be remembered by a deadly experience.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's a big deal because I'm just a person. I love education, you know, and I think I was telling my son this, and I said, son, as much as you hate to hear it, there are things that those police officers judge you by. And you have to know these things, not because you're less than, not because you did anything wrong necessarily, but unfortunately, son, this is the world we live in, you know, and you have to understand, knowing the truth, that unfortunately, in a lot of capacities, we do have a target on our back. That could be out here in the street. That's in corporate America. That's on regular jobs. I shouldn't say regular jobs, but jobs in general. That's in terms of all different type of, you know, capacities. And you're a father, obviously, and I've seen your beautiful girl. I'm a father of a son and a daughter. What do you envision the city looking like when she is 15, 20, 25?
Yeah. You know, I want this city to be one that fulfills its promise in multiple different areas, right? I want us to have multiple pockets of excellence and look like a city parish that is the capital, right? So investing in North Baton Rouge, right? The old Earl K. Long site. It's been a lot of promises what we're going to do there, right? Mixed income communities, right? Like some health care infused there, right? I want to see North Baton Rouge thrive. I want to see a grocery store that's really in Scotland, right? You know, I want to see the students at Southern University be able to cross that hump and go to a nice restaurant, right? I want them to be able to go to a nice grocery store. I want to be able, for her to be 16, I want to be able to take her to a nice restaurant downtown for the prom, right? You know, I want to have to be out there sitting in my car making sure that I'm watching her, because right now on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, there's not a lot of activity in the downtown Baton Rouge. You know, I envision in 10 years a downtown that has some excitement and some energy and some investment there, right? I envision that we're recruiting industries here in the tech industry, right? FinTech, when we talk about access to capital, it's not just banks and credit unions, right? I envision us really responding to the needs of the young people that we educate at LSU and Southern, because if we don't,
Oh,
they're leaving.
yeah.
They're leaving. And it's not, when we were young, go work. I'm gonna work at Exxon. I'm gonna work at Southern. I'm gonna work at LSU or
Right,
state government.
right.
Young people ain't doing that no more.
Right.
going where the money
And they want to go to interesting things. Then we got to recognize young people not staying in the same job 30 years.
Yeah,
Right. So if
Them
we're
days over.
not going to adapt to them,
Yeah.
they're gonna leave.
Yeah.
Right. And we have to be like, I love the culture of Baton Rouge. I love the people. But we got to change the mentality because we are comfortable just being a little small town.
Yeah.
And that's a mentality thing. And for me, I tell people that's my greatest opponent in this race.
Yeah.
It's not the individuals.
It's the
It's the mentality
Yeah.
and us not believing that we deserve what's happening in Nashville, what's happening in
Right,
Chattanooga.
yes.
We deserve it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And we have all of the infrastructure
Yeah.
and the tools to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I envision.
And we're
for,
more
for
than
Baton
New
Rouge.
Orleans.
Most definitely.
You know what I'm saying? We're
Yeah.
more than New Orleans. You know, that everywhere I travel, man. I was just in, me and my wife, we were in Houston. We went to Miami. There's a couple other places we were going for our jobs. And the first thing we told them was from Louisiana. The first thing said, "Oh, so how long you been living in New Orleans?"
Yeah.
We're not from New Orleans.
That's right.
You
That's
know what I'm
right.
saying?
That's right.
From the
That's
great
right.
city of Baton Rouge.
That's right.
You
That's
know?
right.
But nonetheless, this has been great, Ted. I wish we had another hour to really dive in. We would like to bring you back, you know, and definitely talk through some of those things, piggyback off some of those things that we kind of left off on today. And why don't you tell the people where they can find you, what you have coming up next? I know you're campaigning week in, week out.
I will tell you all, man, pay attention to this election. It's vitally important, not just on a national level, but on a local level. And listen to the candidates. There are a lot of debates. There are a lot of things that you hear on radio that, you know, some folks stress the truth a lot. And for me, it's not about attacking anybody. I love everybody that's running. I have a different approach, right? And I'm tedjames.com, at Edward Ted James on Instagram. People pay attention, right? And it's not about, you know, yes, I went to Southern. Yes, I went to McKinley. Yes, I'm the youngest black person running. Well, I'm not even the youngest black person running, but out of the major two. But that don't matter, right? For me, if I'm talking about something you like, support. If not, push me, right? Ask questions. And once elected, that's when I'm gonna really need y'all, right? And the people, like I tell people every day, I'm running like I intend to govern. That means as much as I ask for help and support now, I'm gonna need it once elected because I know what's important in my neighborhood and what's important with me and my family, right? But I'm not running for my neighborhood and my family. So for me, have an agenda, push me, right? Hold me accountable. And for black people, we do this. We let politicians come in our community and say, this is what we're gonna do for y'all. And we don't force them to show up. And for me, have a demand for us, even those of us that look like you, right? Like push us. And it's a difference between calling us out and calling us in. You know, call me in and say, Ted, hey man, it's been about 2 years. You
Going on.
talked about
You're
all
right.
this stuff.
Right.
You know,
Tourism, all
and
of
that's,
that.
that's right.
Right.
And do that a couple
Right.
times. And then when I'm not responding, that's when you call me out,
Right,
right?
right.
And it's nothing wrong with that. And as politicians, we have to stop feeling like we above it because I know I'm not, right? And this is, y'all, I'm desperately asking for folks to pay attention to the issues. And I know if you pay attention, I firmly believe that folks that's paying attention and you judge Baton Rouge where we are today and where we should be and where we deserve to be, I firmly believe I'm going to be elected as the next mayor president, right? But if I'm not, I'm going to wake up the next day and keep moving to accomplish what I want to accomplish in these Baton Rouge parish, right?
Yeah.
And it's not personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you again,
Thank
Ted. We can't wait to have you back. So many topics. I was looking through my phone. It was so many other things I wanted to touch on. I know we don't have the time. I know you have a very demanding schedule, so we want to have you back.
Yes, sir.
Again, thank y'all for joining us. Another great episode of the Guy Talk Pod, where we are honest, open, and transparent. Till next time, peace.